Imagine buying a simple, everyday product to protect your winter clothes, bringing it home, and, well, completely unknowingly triggering a catastrophic breakdown of your own blood cells.
Right, just by hanging it in your closet.
Exactly. You aren't, mixing dangerous, volatile chemicals in a basement laboratory or anything. You aren't ingesting anything suspicious. You are literally just organizing your wardrobe on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and it really shatters that illusion we all have that our domestic spaces are entirely inert.
Hmm.
I mean, we walk down the household goods aisle with this underlying assumption that everything sold next to the laundry detergent is universally benign.
Right.
We assume these products have been, sanitized for public consumption, tested, and deemed perfectly safe for absolutely anyone who walks through the front door of our homes.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are looking at how a totally mundane grocery run can plunge you straight into a high-stakes medical mystery. We're working from a blog entry by a writer named Ang.
Right, it was published on June 26, 2026.
Yeah, it's titled Notes on Home Improvement, Part 102. And our mission today is to trace a straight line from a boring cardboard box on a supermarket shelf all the way down to the microscopic vulnerabilities of human genetics.
And Ang's blog post starts with a very familiar experience. The author is just navigating a modern grocery store.
Which, let's be honest, those environments are totally engineered to induce a state of cognitive ease.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the fluorescent lights, the predictable layout.
The bright typography on the boxes, yeah. It is all designed to make you put things in your cart without engaging your critical thinking skills at all. You're just supposed to rely on your filter, grab your usual brands, and move on.
Honestly, I would argue it's less of a filter and more of a complete sensory blackout.
The sensory blackout, yeah, that is a great way to put it.
Because if we stop to actually read the fine print on every single box of fabric softener and air freshener, we would be trapped in aisle 4 for a week.
Pretty much.
The human brain just cannot process that volume of chemical information while trying to remember if we are, out of trash bags, we've just let the marketing copy wash over us.
But Ang's filter actually drops for a fraction of a second. The author is walking down the aisle and notices a specific product. It's a moth repellent bag.
Okay, a moth repellent bag.
Yeah, and the immediate reaction is not about the ingredients, but about the geographical irony of the product itself. Because Ang lives in a tropical country.
Right.
The blog post points out the sheer absurdity of finding an entire section dedicated to heavy-duty moth repellent in a place where the climate is hot and humid year-round.
Wait, I have to push back on Ang's premise here, though.
Oh.
Just because it is a tropical climate doesn't mean people don't own clothes that moths eat, right? Like, buying heavy-duty snowshoes for a beach vacation is one thing that's absurd, but moths don't exclusively live in snowbanks.
That is a fair point.
People might import high-end wool suits for business, or maybe they have, like, vintage Persian rugs in air-conditioned homes. Are we sure this is an absurdity, or is Ang just, overlooking a niche high-end market for imported fabrics?
Well, while it is true that a minor market for wool preservation might exist in a tropical urban center, the sheer volume of shelf space dedicated to these products tells a different story.
Ah, so it's a real estate issue in the store.
Exactly. Retailers do not dedicate premium, eye-level shelf space to microscopic niche markets. Ang's observation really points to the blunt force nature of globalized supply chains.
Meaning they just ship everything everywhere.
Pretty much. Multinational corporations often mass ship standard household essentials to every market on Earth, completely regardless of local climate realities. The algorithm says supermarkets need mothballs, so the tropical supermarket gets mothballs.
So it's essentially a glitch in the global inventory matrix. But that geographical mismatch is the hook here. It is what breaks Ang out of that grocery store hypnosis we were talking about.
Right, because if the product made perfect sense, like if Ang was living in a freezing cabin in the Arctic, they would have just walked right past it.
Yeah, but because it seems so out of place, Ang actually picks up the package and looks at the label.
And the physical act of picking up the package changes the entire trajectory of the blog post. When Ang examines the back of this moth repellent bag, they find a highly clinical, intensely specific medical phrase printed directly on the cardboard.
What does it say?
The product proudly advertises itself as being G6PD deficiency safe.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the cognitive dissonance here is staggering.
It really is.
If I buy a household product, I expect the label to use terms like lavender fresh or long-lasting. I might even expect, non-toxic or eco-friendly.
It's just standard marketing terms.
Right. But if I see a densely packed medical acronym on a closet deodorizer, my brain just rejects it. It feels like buying a frying pan and finding a warning label about mitochondria.
That is a brilliant analogy. Well, what's fascinating here is that the acronym G6PD stands for glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase.
Okay, hearing the full name somehow makes it even worse.
How so?
I mean, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase sounds like an impossibly complex term you would find on a high-level chemistry exam. It does
Yeah.
not sound like something you'd expect to read while organizing your sweaters. Why does a closet accessory care about an enzyme?
To understand the label, we have to isolate what G6PD actually is. The most crucial detail from Eng's research is that glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is not an active ingredient formulated in a lab and placed inside the moth bag.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is an essential, naturally occurring enzyme found inside the human body.
Oh, wow. So the label isn't talking about the product itself. The label is talking about us. It is calling out a specific piece of human biological machinery.
Precisely. The packaging is essentially communicating a biological compatibility standard. G6PD is an enzyme tasked with helping red blood cells function normally.
Okay.
More specifically, its role is to protect red blood cells from catastrophic damage while they circulate through the body.
So we should probably visualize the environment these cells operate in. Because red blood cells are the ultimate physiological workhorses, right?
They absolutely are.
They're constantly circulating through thousands of miles of blood vessels, squeezing through tiny capillaries, delivering oxygen to every single tissue and organ. They are on a never-ending, incredibly high-stress delivery route.
And their design makes them uniquely vulnerable.
How so?
Well, to maximize the amount of oxygen they can carry, human red blood cells actually shed their nucleus during their development.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're essentially just specialized microscopic bags of hemoglobin. Because they lack a nucleus, they cannot repair themselves if they sustain severe structural damage.
So once they are compromised, they're just destroyed.
Exactly.
Okay, so G6PD is basically a microscopic bodyguard, or like a cellular suit of armor for your red blood cells. Without this bodyguard, the red blood cells are essentially walking around defenseless, just waiting for something to attack them.
Well, I actually need to correct that visualization a bit.
Oh, okay.
The armor analogy implies a physical barrier deflecting microscopic daggers, which misrepresents the actual threat. The danger to these cells isn't physical trauma, it is chemical volatility.
Meaning what exactly?
The red blood cells are carrying oxygen, and oxygen can be a highly reactive, dangerous element. It creates free radicals, which leads to a condition called oxidative stress.
So rather than someone stabbing the truck is slowly rusting from the inside out because of the cargo it is carrying.
Yes, chemical rusting is a highly accurate way to frame oxidative stress. The free radicals steal electrons from the lipids in the cell membrane. If left unchecked, the membrane becomes brittle and oxidizes.
So the enzyme stops the rusting.
Right. G6PD is not a suit of armor. It is more like an internal fire extinguisher. It produces a compound that neutralizes those free radicals, putting out the microscopic chemical fires before they can rust the cell membrane.
Okay, got it. But the label mentions a G6PD deficiency. So we are talking about a genetic mutation where a person is born without enough fire extinguishers.
Exactly. They inherit a genetic trait where their body produces insufficient levels of this enzyme.
But if it's a deficiency, how do they survive normally?
Well, under normal, calm conditions, they might have just enough G6PD to handle the everyday baseline oxidative stress of breathing and circulating blood. The danger emerges when an external factor suddenly introduces a massive spike in chemical volatility.
And if that massive chemical fire starts, and they don't have the fire extinguishers on hand, the cell membrane rusts, becomes completely brittle, and shatters.
Yes, and when the cell membrane shatters prematurely, the resulting medical crisis is called haemolytic anemia. Hemo refers to blood, and lytic means destruction or breaking apart.
That sounds terrifying.
It is serious. The body suddenly begins destroying its own red blood cells significantly faster than the bone marrow can produce replacements.
That sounds like a cascading systemic failure.
Right.
I mean, if you lose the red blood cells, you lose the ability to transport oxygen to your organs. You're essentially suffocating at a cellular level, experiencing fatigue, jaundice, and potentially severe organ stress.
All simply because a chemical fire broke out and the extinguishers were missing.
Wow.
And the symptoms can escalate rapidly depending on the severity of the trigger. Which brings us back to the physical product Aang was holding in the store.
Right, the moth bag.
A person with a G6PD deficiency is walking around with this hidden internal vulnerability. They might feel perfectly fine.
Until they encounter the trigger.
Yes. The label on the modern moth repellent is implicitly acknowledging that an older, more common version of this household product acts as the chemical spark.
So the trigger is hiding in the closet. The chemical that initiates this massive wave of oxidative stress in the bloodstream is something we deliberately bring into our homes to kill bugs.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the chemical culprit is naphthalene. It is a highly volatile aromatic hydrocarbon.
Naphthalene.
Yes. For decades, naphthalene has been the primary active ingredient in traditional mothballs. So when a modern manufacturer prints G6PD deficiency safe on their packaging, they are providing a clinical translation for a much simpler phrase. This product is 100% naphthalene-free.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the consumer? Let's reflect on the nostalgia of traditional mothballs for a second. Because almost everyone has a sensory memory of these things.
Ooh, definitely.
They are those classic, distinct, white, round tablets. You find them rattling around loose in the back of almost everyone's childhood closets or stuffed into the pockets of a vintage winter coat you bought at a thrift store.
The sensory footprint of naphthalene is deeply embedded in the cultural memory of domestic life. It has a sharp, acrid, almost medicinal odor.
Yeah, my grandparents' house smelled exactly like that.
Right, and for generations, that specific smell has been conflated with the concept of cleanliness, preservation, and responsible household management. People associate the scent with taking good care of their expensive fabrics.
The nostalgia factor makes it feel incredibly benign. You smell a mothball, and you think of old family heirlooms or cozy, preserved sweaters. But knowing what we know now, G6PD deficiency safe is essentially just a translation for naphthalene-free. It transforms a seemingly benign, nostalgic white tablet into a targeted biological threat for those missing their cellular bodyguard.
Exactly, because the chemistry of how those little white tablets actually work is what makes them so invasive. They don't just sit there.
What do you mean?
They undergo a process called sublimation.
Sublimation. I remember that from high school chemistry. That means it doesn't melt, right?
Correct. It does not melt from a solid into a liquid puddle. At room temperature, the solid white tablet transitions directly into a toxic gas. That is the entire functional purpose of the product.
No way.
Yeah, the gas permeates the confined space of a closet, seeps into the fibers of the wool, and creates a toxic atmosphere that kills moth larvae.
But sublimation means the chemical isn't contained at all. It isn't a liquid locked inside a spray bottle under the sink. It is a gas intentionally released into the air of your home.
Yes.
So when you open that closet door, you aren't just smelling a nostalgic scent. You are inhaling aerosolized hydrocarbons directly into your lungs.
And the gas passes through the lungs and immediately enters the bloodstream. Now, for a person with normal enzyme levels, the body deploys its chemical fire extinguishers, neutralizes the sudden spike in free radicals, and processes the toxin without a catastrophic failure.
It might be mildly irritating, but the red blood cells survive.
Right. But for someone with a G6PD deficiency, inhaling the air inside that closet is a biological ambush.
An ambush. I like that word for this.
They open the door to grab a coat, the naphthalene enters the blood, the free radicals multiply out of control, and because the protective enzyme is genetically absent, the red blood cells begin to undergo lipid peroxidation.
The cell membranes become brittle and start breaking apart.
Yes. And this interaction highlights the profound difference between universal hazards and conditional hazards.
Universal versus conditional.
Exactly. We are trained to recognize universal dangers in our homes. Bleach is toxic. Ammonia is caustic. A sharp knife will cut anyone who mishandles it. We respect those items because their mechanism of harm applies equally to every human biology.
Right. Bleach doesn't care about your genetic heritage. It is an equal opportunity destroyer.
But naphthalene represents an insidious, invisible category of risk. It is a conditional hazard. Its toxicity is entirely dependent on an invisible variable locked inside your DNA.
That is wild to think about. To one family member, a mothball is just a smelly annoyance. But to another family member who inherited the enzyme deficiency, it is a severe medical emergency waiting to happen. The environment interacts with each person's unique internal biology differently.
And that makes Aang's discovery in the grocery store so much more resonant. Aang wasn't at a hematologist's office receiving a complex diagnosis. Aang wasn't reading a peer-reviewed medical journal.
Right, Aang was literally just trying to buy household supplies, completely on autopilot. until a weird geographical mismatch forced them to stop and read the cardboard box.
The fact that modern manufacturers are using this specific clinical language is a fascinating shift in consumer education. By declaring the product G6PD deficiency safe, they are pulling a niche genetic vulnerability out of the medical realm and placing it firmly in the public square.
They are basically acknowledging that the old way of managing our homes was actively dangerous for a hidden segment of the population.
Exactly.
It forces you to wonder how many people have walked down that exact aisle, grabbed a box of traditional naphthalene mothballs because it was cheaper or familiar, and brought it home without ever knowing they carried the deficiency.
It is entirely possible.
They could be triggering low-grade haemolytic anemia, feeling lethargic and sick, and never once suspect the little white tablet sitting in their coat closet.
This blog post really provides a masterful demonstration of why maintaining curiosity about our mundane surroundings is so vital. The built environment of our homes, the products we use to clean and organize, are not passive objects.
No, they really aren't.
They are active chemical agents participating in a constant silent dialogue with our physiology.
If we trace the entire arc of Aang's journey today, the scale of it is just incredible. I mean, we started in the most unassuming location possible, a brightly lit supermarket in the tropics, looking at a product that felt entirely unnecessary for the local weather.
And that minor geographical discrepancy prompted a closer reading of the packaging, which revealed a cryptic medical acronym demanding explanation.
We followed that acronym out of the store and deep into the microscopic circulatory system of the human body. We watched red blood cells speeding through capillaries, relying on a chemical fire extinguisher to keep from rusting away.
We witnessed the systemic destruction of hemolytic anemia when those natural defenses are genetically stripped away.
And then we brought all of that intense biology right back into the most boring room in the house, the closet. We transformed a nostalgic, innocent-smelling white tablet into a sublimating chemical threat that targets a specific subset of human genetics.
It reveals how much invisible complexity is baked into the daily rituals we take for granted. Knowledge about our health doesn't just reside in medical textbooks. Sometimes it is printed in bold letters on the back of the items we casually throw into our shopping carts.
This deep dive proves that dropping your autopilot filter, even just for a second to question why a box is sitting on a shelf, can literally uncover hidden hazards in the world around you. Your everyday environment is intimately and sometimes dangerously entangled with your unique biological makeup. Being a curious learner can quite literally save you.
It certainly demands that we treat our domestic spaces with a bit more scientific scrutiny.
So the next time you find yourself wandering down the household goods aisle, eyes glazed over, just trying to buy some laundry detergent and go home, I want you to remember Aang stopping in front of that moth repellent. And I want to leave you with a lingering thought to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
Well, is a simple old-fashioned closet item like a mothball contains a chemical that can directly attack our red blood cells due to one missing enzyme. What other common everyday household items might be silently, invisibly interacting with our unique individual genetic makeups right now without us ever noticing?